Hello everyone, today I want to share my Neuvillette build and teams with you in the short guide. As always, I start with a build, then go over teams, and at the end I show some of this gameplay.
Bow your head, let the mighty be humbled.
The build is actually pretty straightforward. As always, you want crit damage, and for this character specifically, hydro damage bonus and max HP. As for energy recharge, yes, he does all his damage with charge attacks, but to actually use them, you are still reliant on your elemental burst skill. So I'd say around 140 to 150% should be definitely enough. As for attack, completely useless. Elemental mastery doesn't really do much for this character. If possible, I would try to completely avoid it. I just mentioned it, Neuvillette is all about charge attacks, so definitely level them up all the way first before you even think about your other skills. They are kind of similar in damage since you have to press your elemental skill twice to recharge your burst, so I would just level them up equally. As for Constellations, I think especially the first two are really strong. Constellation 1 opens up extra team synergy because now you're only required to trigger 2 hydro-related elemental reactions instead of 3 to get the maximum benefit from his passive skill. I guess conceptually it's kind of similar to Raiden C1. And Constellation 2 is just straight up extra crit damage on the charge attack. Constellation 4 is a little slower, it's just a source water droplet will be generated on a 4-second internal cooldown when Neuvillette is healed, and I think it's mainly for C6 synergy, because now the charge attack has the ability to absorb excess source water droplets to increase its duration. With this you can probably laser beam over 10 seconds straight if you choose to, and it also does a little bit of extra damage, which isn't too impressive, but he's already strong enough as he is. As for weapon options, I think a really good 4-star option is the Witsith. This character has so many damage modifiers that once it's all added up together, the crit damage modifier on top of it will scale like crazy. So for this alone, the Witsith is great. And HP scaling characters are a little weird, so I think HP is way stronger for them than attack for attack scaling characters, for example, so the prototype Amber would be really interesting, and you can drop some energy recharge because you generate energy, and you can drop a healer altogether because you also heal your entire team. As for artifacts, we already covered substats earlier. As for main stats, it's definitely HP percentage in this slot. In this one, the safe choice would be hydro damage bonus, but you can do some weird min-maxing and end up with HP instead. Generally, I think HP is a more valuable and harder to come by stat than attack for attack scaling characters. There is like no Bennett equivalent of an HP buffing character, for example. And for my example specifically, I just don't have a lot of HP substats. So if I took a Hydro Cup instead, I would end up with like 75% HP, and this character has a lot of bonus damage already, like 30% Hydro damage bonus from his passive skill. Then you have like the Wondrous Troop set, the Lost Prayer to the Sacred Wind weapon, and you run something like Kazuo, Akiak, Betra, Zhongli, and you are already above 100% bonus damage even without a Hydro damage bonus cup, so HP percentage seems pretty worth it in this case for me. Then in the last slot, guaranteed crit damage. You might want to run crit rate, but he already has crit rate ascension stat, so you probably get a better distribution with crit damage. As for the set, I already mentioned the Wondrous Troop set. It's a good starting point, but eventually you probably want the Marie-Chaussee Hunter set. As for teams, I guess this is already all you need to see because he is incredibly self-sufficient. Tons of people are clearing Abyss 12 solo with him, and a lot of people call him one of the best free-to-play characters in the game, and I couldn't agree more. He's the very definition of a hyper carry. But if for once Neuvillette actually chooses to team up with people, there are some really good options. I already mentioned Zhongli for the Akiak Petra set, the extra Hydro damage bonus, and you get your first reaction with Hydro and Geo. And even better in the slot in my opinion, doing kind of the same with Hydro damage bonus and the resistance shred would be Kazuo, but Neuvillette also doesn't have the best Hydro application, and Kazuo with a Hydro infused burst skill kind of solves that problem. And then you could go for the whole Bloom route with a character like Nahida or Baiju if you want a healer, and in the last slot you could go for Shinobu to just play Hyper Bloom, or even something like Fischl who isn't as consistent at Hyper Bloom, but you will trigger a lot of aggravate damage and still do really good damage overall in my opinion. And to suggest one more free-to-play oriented 4-star team, I really like this one. You basically melt and vaporize all over the place. You have Bennett to manage Zhangling's energy, and obviously Zhangling and Rosaria both a snapshot to benefit from Bennett's attack buff. As for gameplay, it's quite simple, press the skills and then do the most damage with charged attacks. And just to give one more quick tip, I'd say press your burst skill early, because you want to have it up all the time. Without it, this character doesn't really work, so you want to generate energy immediately. And for visual indicators, his cape down here starts glowing to indicate that his passive skill is active, and to track how many hydro-related elemental reactions you triggered, above the active character's head, and yes, any active character, not just Neuvillette, is a little counter. I think the opacity on that is a little awkward. I think it's quite hard to see, but it is what it is, I guess. And just to see how it works in practice, let's just kill this Rune Guards. And I apply Hydro, I just use my burst skill here. You can always use a normal attack, remember that. And then I trigger the freeze reaction, as you saw above Rosaria's head was the first indicator. Then I apply Hydro again. I just use the normal attacks. Jungling applies Pyro, and above her head the second indicator. And we don't have more in this team, so right now I just kill them. And for now I'm gonna leave you with some Abyss gameplay. I did upload this clip before because unfortunately I think this is the only team that works really well with Neuvillette against this boss, because the burning damage plus dendro damage seems to break the burn really fast, and then you just have to finish it off in the damage phase.
A bitter pill to swallow. Gather! Silence! Let the mighty be humbled!
Alright, we made it to the end. I hope this gave you some inspiration for your own bits. Stay tuned for more videos. Until then, have fun and bye bye.